Today on Think Like a Leader, I have a message for experienced leaders who are in the process of trying to empower emerging leaders. And sometimes things don't go exactly the way we had planned. And I also have a message for emerging leaders who really are trying with all of your hearts to honor the experienced leaders. But sometimes you have a different strategy, and sometimes an emerging leader has a different way that they want to contextualize a commonly held principle or truth or belief. And so how do you honor experienced leaders, but yet do something that strategically is not what they would have done? And as an experienced leader, what do you do when someone you've empowered is maybe taking things a little different direction and maybe slightly different, or maybe in a major way different than what you would do? All right, we have a scripture, really an odd scripture, one of those strange stories in the Old Testament, but I think it speaks to this issue of how do emerging leaders give honor where honor is due toward established leaders and experienced leaders while not doing everything exactly the way that they did it. All right, here we go. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. Now the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, "See, the place where we dwell under your charge is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, and each of us get there a log, and let us make a place for us to dwell there." And he answered, "Go." Then one of them said, "Be pleased to go with your servants." And he answered, "I will go." So he went with them. And when they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees. But as one was felling a log, his axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, "Alas, my master, it was borrowed." Then the man of God said, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. And he said, "Take it up." So he reached out his hand and took it. Now, that is a strange story, but I want to use that maybe as a parable or a metaphor for experienced leaders working with emerging leaders, and for emerging leaders, how to honor experienced leaders and yet not do exactly everything the way they have done it or that they would want it done. So if you are an experienced leader and you are looking for potential leaders, I think this story gives you the description of a potential leader. I'm often asked by people who visit Manila or people who engage every nation at different places around the world, where did we get so many strong leaders? Whether they're looking at a local church that I had the privilege of pastoring for many, many years, or whether they're looking at our global family of churches. I even had one quite well-known consultant, prolific author, professor, teacher that all of you know, who one time looked at Kevin and I and said, "Every nation is a leadership movement." We were trying to explain to him that we are a movement or a family of churches. And he said, "No, you're a leadership movement because your churches are filled with leaders more than the average church, and your campus ministries are filled with leaders." And he kept identifying us as a leadership movement. But when we think about leaders, how do we recognize a potential leader? Not a current leader, not guaranteed to be a future leader, but someone with potential. I think the story that we just read gives the marks, and there are 5 of them, to recognize a potential leader. Here we go. The first one. In verse 1, the sons of the prophets, these are the emerging leaders. This is like these younger, prophetically leaning people that see Elisha as their leader. They come to him and they say, "See, the place where we dwell under your charge." So they're clearly under his authority. They're under his leadership. But they're saying it's too small for us. And I commend Elisha for having the type of leadership culture where these younger prophetic people could actually go to him and ask for more space. And so one thing I'm looking for in potential leaders are people who really want more space. They felt cramped. And some leaders get offended by that. They react to that. I invite that. People who don't at some point think they need more space probably aren't leaders. This is a way you can recognize potential. Not that everyone who wants more space doesn't mean they're automatically a leader, but there's certainly potential there. They want more. They want to spread their wings, metaphorically. They want to do more than just be under a situation. So, one, potential leaders want more space. Secondly, and this is an interesting one in verse 2, and they say, "Let us go to the Jordan, and each of us get there a log and make a place to dwell." it's a little bit humorous that these people, obviously they're in a school of the prophets. They're studying spirituality and prophetic and theology and ancient Hebrew scriptures. They're being trained to be prophets. They don't have a clue how to build a house. They don't have a clue how to build a building. They said, let's just go there and get a log. Each of us will get a log and we'll build something. Yeah, you don't know. You obviously don't know how to build. And you find that out later because they don't even own an axe. They had to borrow the axe. Anybody who actually knows how to build would have their own tools. So these people are clueless, but it's a sign of potential leadership. I find people that have confidence beyond their ability, confidence beyond their experience, confidence beyond their education. Believe it or not, those are potential leaders. The person who waits until they have all the experience, all the training, all the credentials and all that to do anything never does anything. But I love these people that are so confident they can do it. And let's just go get a log and we'll build a house there. Have you ever built a house? Well, no. Do you have any tools? No. Yeah, go do it. But we're looking for potential leaders. Number one, at some point, they feel like they're cramped. They need more space. Number two, they've got maybe too much confidence. Maybe they're overconfident and they're ready to go tackle something they've never done before. Leaders are in the front. They often have to go to spaces and places and do things that they've never done before. So this is actually a good sign for a potential leader. Thirdly, and we look at verse 3, then one of them said, so they're all going out to the Jordan. They're going to go find a log and somehow build a house. Like they're just going to find logs there. They later on realize they have to cut the trees down. These don't sound like outdoor guys. So they spent too much time in the library. But then it says, one of them, verse 3, said, please be pleased to go with your servants. And Elisha said, okay, I'll go. Potential leaders want more space. Potential leaders have confidence maybe when they shouldn't have confidence. There's a boldness. There's a risk taking. But also potential leaders still want the presence of the experienced leaders. They don't want to be completely cut off. If somebody has the overconfident and they want more space and they don't want to have anything to do with the experienced leaders, that's not a potential leader for me. They wanted the presence of Elisha. They just didn't want Elisha to control everything. They wanted a shot to make their own mistakes, to give it a try, but still having his presence there. And we see what his presence is for. We see verse 4 and 5. So then they start cutting trees down and they don't know what they're doing. So they break the axe, the axe head falls in and sinks. And then you see this scene where they're going, oh no, it wasn't even ours. It was borrowed. And we obviously didn't know how to use it. And we obviously didn't know what we were doing. And now we're in trouble. And so they're reaching out and asking for help. So the third sign that we might have a potential leader is that when, not if, when the emerging potential leader makes a mistake, they own it. They admit it. They don't cover it up. They don't pretend like they didn't make a mistake. They don't blame it on someone else. These guys owned it. Look, here's what happened. And they go straight to their leader. They go straight to their mentor. They go straight to Elisha, who they said, look, we want you here, but we just want to have a shot of trying this. But he was there. So a potential leader is one who makes a mistake and admits it, owns it, tries to rectify it, and asks for help. Someone who won't admit it and won't ever even try, so they do make a mistake, blames it on someone else, that's not a potential leader. And then what happens is this. So Elisha then doesn't fix the problem for them. He asks, where was it? And he gets the stick, he throws it in, the thing floats up, but then he tells him, now you go get it. So the role of that mentor was not to fix the problem or to make sure the problem didn't happen. Failure is going to happen. But he helped them solve their own problem. He still made them. And so finally, the final sign of someone who might be a potential leader, you've got potential if that person makes a mistake, admits it, owns it, asks for help, then gets back in the game. Because what happens is Elisha tells him, now you take it up. It floated up, you get it. And the implication is you go back and keep cutting that tree down because you're not going to find the log sitting around to build your prophet's place. Potential leaders. Sometimes they feel they're cramped. They want more space. No problem at all. What will you do if you're an experienced leader when somebody starts indicating they need more space? Will you call them a rebel? Will you call them a separatist? Will you call them whatever? Or will you accept this is part of maturity? give them the space? Will you empower them to do something? And you know, they don't have a clue what they're doing, but they want the space. They want to take a risk. Will you let them do it? Will you empower them the way Elisha did? When, not if, when they fail, when they mess up, will you take over the reins again and bump them down? Or will you help them resolve it and then step back and let them grab the axe head and keep going forward until their next mistake? Will you push them back in the game, or will you use that as an excuse to bench them for another season and then you take over again? Listen, we aren't a leadership movement by accident, if indeed that's what we are. There are reasons. There are so many leaders in so many of your churches and so many of your campus ministries. It's the culture that we see Elisha living out here among those younger prophets. And I pray that as experienced leaders, we would always be willing to empower younger leaders beyond their ability and then be present when things don't go right. Not to say I told you so, but to help them and then step back and let them continue to do what God's called them to do. And I pray that God would send us wave after wave of younger leaders who are willing to step out in faith into things that are uncertain, maybe beyond their ability and maybe over their head. But I hope that we have generation after generation who are willing to take those steps of faith and fail and get back up and continue on in the things of God. So I pray that God will open up the leadership pipeline in your ministry, in your world, and will bless and multiply your leadership influence.